and whether he could hold out until Sigrun and I found the Duke. But Jerome only said, "It's still uncertain. But I will do my best," Fiona added. "First of all, I brought some mercenaries here with me and have prepared everything, so just wait for the right moment and then start." Jerome replied, "Yes, miss. Several days have passed since Aben went missing in a place where food sources are always scarce like this. Luckily, I prepared in advance. But now I don't know if the food supplies will be enough to sustain until we find Aben," she thought. "But no matter what, as long as Aben is still alive, that's what matters." Before leaving, Jerome said, "Is it okay for you two to go alone like this? In this blustery snowstorm, it's really dangerous." But Fiona said, "I think going with fewer people is better." But Jerome still said, "Even so, there are 2 dragons here. If you bring too many people to search, they will notice us." She also analyzed that Halong's army is also on the way to find Aben before we arrived here. So now they must be very tired already. If we keep making them continue, it will lead to exhaustion and death. Hearing this, Jerome could only worry and said, "Yes, miss, I'm worried." He said, "You two must be careful." Fiona said, "Don't worry. If anything urgent happens, I will signal with magic." She thought she really hated using magic. But honestly, even if she was lucky now, it would only be possible to find Aben. She knew that was why Jerome told her there was no need to find Aben, as long as they returned safely alive. She hoped that Lord Aben was still alive, she told Jerome, to tell all the soldiers to watch the sky over the northern mountains. She also thought her reason made her give a decisive answer. The blizzard blew coldly. Fiona had been walking for a while, and thought she had been going quite long and was about to lose endurance before reaching Halong. Luckily, she had hired a mercenary group to search together, so finding Aben and Halong would be easier. The remaining problem was the dangers that could come at any time. Stepping on the snow, she thought that even if she could find Aben, it would be difficult to return safely. And that was also what Jerome thought. Jerome considered giving up the search, but that was also the reason that made me determined to come here to find Aben. Suddenly, a roar startled the whole team. It seemed like the roar of a dragon. Sigrun said, "That's right, it sounded like it was in great pain." Fiona said, "Sigrun, can you come with me? We'll go to that dragon, but..." Someone spoke up to stop her, "Miss, that would be very dangerous. If you go directly to the dragons, it will be very dangerous." "On the contrary," Sigrun just replied briefly, "it's fine," which surprised everyone a bit. But Sigrun continued, "Why is it so dangerous? And you didn't ask why? You seem to have something on your mind since earlier." Then Sigrun covered his mouth and said, "Then let's try going there and see." So the two went toward the dragon. Suddenly they noticed dry grass on the path. Sigrun said, "Fiona." Sigrun crouched down to observe and said, "It seems someone had made a fire here." Fiona agreed and replied, "Yes, it seems Aben had been here." She called Sigrun and said that in the past, there was a time when humans and dragons were connected. Those dragons were praised as the smartest in the world. Hearing that, Sigrun said this was the first time he heard about this. But he suspiciously asked Fiona how she knew that. At that moment, she realized she had let it slip. She thought, "Oh no, this is a story about the modern world." So she said, I forgot, this is an ancient story, so I don't remember clearly," making Sigrun pause. He said, "Fiona, wait. It seems there is blood in the cave." Then he flipped over the dry grass and saw blood stains. He said it seemed dried, but probably recently dried. On the other side, the wind blew very strongly. 2 large wolves with dark red fur appeared, drooling, seemingly searching for prey. It sensed something, but Fiona used fire magic to attack it, making it howl. The other wolves in the pack then surrounded Fiona, but she didn't care, and continued to use her power until suddenly a wolf lunged to bite her. Fiona was surprised, but she used electric magic to shock the wolves. After a while, some of the wolves were singed, but the remaining wolves seemed not to give up attacking her. They still intended to charge forward. Fiona thought that since these monsters gathered here, Anel and his group must be very close. But then she thought further, if so, Aben should be here too, since the monsters are gathering here or around here. The more she thought, the more she hoped Earthbound was not here. Otherwise, Sigrun stepped forward, calling Fiona. It seemed Fiona just remembered him. She asked Sigrun if Anel was okay and if he was injured. Sigrun replied, "He is fine. The monsters here have all been killed by him." Then he pointed upwards and said, "But there are many monsters gathering up there. In this case, wait for me a moment." Suddenly, Fiona quickly ran forward, making Sigrun astonished, shouting urgently, "Fiona, wait! Damn it! Wait! That's the end of the cave!" But she could not be stopped. because at that moment, Fiona only thought of Aben, ignoring Sigrun's shouts behind her. Hurry up and stop. Fiona, she still rushed forward, only thinking of Aben. She stopped because in front of her was a dragon. It roared, its eyes shining brightly, making Fiona shocked, not because she was afraid of the dragon, but because Aben, covered in blood, was slumped at the dragon's feet, his sword still stuck in it. Aben's blood dripped onto the ground with a dripping sound. Fiona looked at him. Aben! Sigrun ran up from behind Fiona. Fiona, are you okay? He was stunned, looking ahead. A giant red dragon was standing behind Aben. It's the dragon, he said to Fiona. Fiona, get behind me. If it's a dragon, I'll handle it because I have experience. At that moment, before Sigrun could finish speaking, Fiona interrupted. Wait a moment, Sigrun. Please wait for me a bit. Her eyes were determined as she looked at Sigrun. Sigrun was surprised, eyes wide open, looking at Fiona. She turned to speak to the dragon. Clement Edward. That is your name, right? You are the first dragon and also the wisest dragon. As far as I know, you are the only remaining rational dragon in this world. If you are able to talk, let's have a conversation. Every word Fiona spoke came out. The dragon's eyes glowed even brighter. Long ago there were 4 dragons with reason and intelligence that humans could not compare to. Those dragons mingled with humans. They lived together and respected each other's existence. But after a long time, their intelligence gradually faded. The names of those dragons disappeared from human records, and that is one of the worldviews of this novel. Fiona and the red dragon silently looked at each other. Sigrun thought. Suddenly the dragon became quiet. It truly understood Fiona's words. Really so. After a moment of silence, the red dragon growled, Little human, how do you know my name? It exists in a forgotten era. Fiona clenched her hand tightly. Indeed, I guessed right. But I must be cautious. It is not a fully rational dragon like before. It is difficult to explain details to Sigrun right now. Even just seeing Aben's sword stuck in the dragon, it would not easily pity Aben. If careless, Aben next to the dragon would be in danger. The lucky thing is, if that is the case, Aben next to it, most likely Aben is still alive. His head is bleeding, but it is not a fatal wound. She wondered about one notable point. Clearly there should be 2 dragons, but now there is only one. The dragon growled and said it had nothing to say to humans. Fiona asked if it had something to ask it. I'm curious if we can help with your matter. The dragon frowned. Help? Help with what? Fiona waved her hand. Right now, humans are in crisis because of your war. They are dying slowly because of the increasing monsters. They are injured or losing their homes or trembling in the cold. Humans can solve this problem if you end the war and leave here. I think the relationship between humans and dragons can be rebuilt like before. So I want to ask you why you are fighting your own kind here. The red dragon told Fiona that it had been thousands of years since anyone recognized its existence. So it would answer her question. Fiona was delighted, the dragon continued. But the human standing next to you, I'm curious why the smell of dragon blood, the aura radiating from this person is so intense. Fiona turned to look at Sigrun. Suddenly remembering that Sigrun had once killed a dragon, Fiona anxiously spoke to the dragon. Please listen to me, Clement Edward. The reason Sigrun had to kill dragons is because humans once suffered greatly because of dragons. I won't make any excuses. But please remember that many people sacrifice themselves for no reason, Fiona said, feeling a push from behind. It's Sigrun, he said, stepping back. Fiona, Aben was about to attack you, Sigrun said through gritted teeth. Using a sword to block Aben's blade, the dragon had seen everything and said, Come on, human. If you are wise enough to negotiate with a dragon, then you should speak the answer to the question you asked me. This is the test, the red dragon continued. Surely, Cax, you really want to find the answer. Then try to find the answer. This is just a test. Meanwhile, Sigrun and Aben were still sword fighting. They looked at each other with determined eyes as their swords clashed. The clashing sound echoed near Fiona's ears. In her mind, she wondered, why? Why is it like this? Could it be that this dragon is controlling him to harm his own kin? Could it be that he has made a deal with this dragon? There must be some agreement. But why now? Is he testing us? Sigrun was worried. This was completely different from what he and Aben had practiced in Halong. The situation was very difficult and seemed unsolvable. Aben was truly treating this as a battle. He showed no defense at all. Thinking this, he said to Fiona, Fiona, you need to resolve this quickly. If we just keep defending against Aben's attacks like this, both of us will definitely be in danger. Even if you hate me now, I have to protect you and get you out of here. In 5 minutes, I will attack Aben. Fiona hesitated. 5 minutes? Sigrun was really conflicted in this situation. Looking at his face, as if he was about to cry, she said to the dragon, Clement Edward, you are expending too much energy. I know you can't hold on much longer. Even if you curse Aben for not recognizing us. From what I see, this is not a test at all. Those who pass this test, could it be that you want to take revenge by making them kill their own loved ones? If you want to understand what revenge is, put yourself in the shoes of those willing to fight, to capture dragons. Yes, from what I see, if I wanted revenge, I would definitely do it myself. That would be more meaningful, the dragon Clement Edward thought. In this situation, she still appeared calm. Truly, a strange human. Meanwhile, on the other side, still fighting Aben, Sigrun shouted. Fiona worriedly heard Sigrun's voice. I've said so much already, I have to make the most of the little time left. The dragon still didn't respond to her. She was sure her guesses were likely correct. What do you need to do next, Fiona? This dragon still seemed willing to risk its life. It seemed like it wanted to say something to her through this situation. Why was it still risking its life to continue? Suddenly, a loud thud sounded like something collapsing. Fiona looked toward the sound and saw that Aben had fallen. Sigrun said to her, no matter how much that dragon cursed Aben, Aben's body has its limits. I can feel how he's channeling power through his sword. In this battle, Aben absolutely did not want Fiona to think. She said to Sigrun, that's right. Definitely. That's the answer this dragon wants. Let me handle Aben. Saying that, she waved her hand and a large flame burst forth. Fiona continued, Sigrun, do you remember what you told me? You said there would be a time when I'd need you. You were right. I really need you now. Please wait for me. I have something to do. Sigrun wondered. Is this something you have to do? What exactly is this, Fiona? Fiona answered. The answer is Aben doesn't have to suppress the opponent. From now on, do as I say. Sigrun seemed to understand what was going on. He smiled. I will gladly accept your orders. Now, Clement Edward witnessed everything, panting heavily. I have something to do, too. Sigrun wondered if this was something I had to do. What, Fiona, what exactly is this about? Fiona answered that the answer is, Aben should not suppress the opponent from now on. Please do as I say. Sigrun seemed to understand what was going on. He smirked. I will gladly accept your orders. Now Clement Edward, witnessing everything, was panting heavily, thinking silently that maybe because humans have strong willpower, he has exhausted more energy than he thought, plus the wounds from the fight. There's no more time to delay here for these people, even if I'm alone. While Clement Edward was lost in thought, Sigrun ran over, grabbed the sword that Aben had stabbed into the dragon earlier. Fiona had told him, the curse's medium controlling Aben was that sword. The curse began from hatred. Sigrun, I will use fireworks to block Aben and the dragon's vision. You dig deep into that gap and pull the sword out. As soon as the sword was pulled out, Aben collapsed. Fiona quickly caught him, his whole body leaning on her shoulder. Sigrun spoke to the dragon. It seemed Fiona's guess was correct. You used Aben's sword, stabbed into you as a means to curse Aben. When Clement Edward questioned, why did you only pull the sword out? You could have used that sword to kill me, Sigrun replied. I think that's not what Fiona wants. After helping Aben lie down, Fiona stood up and looked at Clement Edward. Clement Edward, if you really are the wise dragon, then I think you wouldn't use this curse without meaning. So I realized, the situation we face with you looks very much like a battle you have had to fight alone all along. You don't really want to fight us, but we must kill each other to stop that person. That is a tragic reality. You want us to understand that, right? About the situation you're facing, about your feelings now, when you have to hurt another dragon who has lost reason. Clement Edward answered, one of my 3 close friends faced death caused by humans near her. Actually, I am very grateful for that. Dragons have almost immortal lives, which also means even if our bodies have no reason or emotion, we still have to live. My close friends have repeated killing for the past 1,000 years. I don't think such a life will be peaceful. Fiona said, so that's why Cax, you fought. You want Cax, the other dragon, to rest before your reason disappears. Clement Edward praised her. You really are a wise and brave human. Let me tell you something. When that guy met me, he was already injured by the monster. Sigrun said, if that's the case, I'm fine, Fiona. Even if I'm not, it's something I often do anyway. Clement Edward continued. Humans, let's start the deal before it's too late. Just then, Aben's hand twitched. He had woken up. He blinked. Am I seeing illusions? Fiona replied. It's not an illusion. While Aben was unconscious, we made a deal with the dragon. The condition is the dragon won't attack us anymore. Cax's soldiers and mercenaries will soon arrive here. Aben told Fiona, it seems it's already too late. Daughter, call me father one last time. Fiona worried. Last time? This isn't the last time, Aben continued. Hurry and call me. Fiona gritted her teeth. Father, Aben smiled. If I could hear that call more often, it would be wonderful. Fiona was scared. As long as father is alive, father can still hear. Just as she was moved, Sigrun suddenly kicked Aben. Teacher, now you should grow up a bit. Fiona was surprised. Sigrun, how dare you do that to a patient? Sigrun retorted. I use the method you use every day right in front of me, so you feel uncomfortable, right? Fiona froze after hearing that. At this moment, Aben sat up and said to Fiona, in short, you promised, right? Fiona was furious, tears welling up. I thought father was dead. I would never call you father again. Aben sounded like a thunderbolt. He explained, Fiona, don't cry anymore. Actually, this is Sigrun's way, he said while holding his stomach. Fiona doubted. This time it's not acting, right? She sighed. Sigrun, your teacher is too short. Sigrun agreed. Your foster father is the same. The mountain rocks shook with a thud. Aben asked again, starting now? Fiona replied. That's the content of our deal. We have to help the dragons and not hinder them until they die. Aben was surprised. Help until they die? Sigrun asked Fiona. Should I tell Aben what happened? After getting Fiona's consent, he turned to speak to Aben. Aben, before going to help the dragons, I have something to tell you. Sigrun told everything, and Aben finally understood, so that's how it is. I wondered why there was still soot on my clothes, Fiona said. Both you and Sigrun focused on defense, so you weren't seriously injured. It probably wasn't from the previous injury. Aben responded with a hum, because this was something he often did with Sigrun, so even though he heard those words, he didn't feel anything special. Fiona wondered why all the priests at SAO said the same thing. Aben continued speaking. But if it were you, the story would be different. Unexpectedly, I attacked you. Fiona replied, No, Aben. I thought it was the result of carelessness. Aben asked Fiona why she kept talking as if it was her fault. Just then, upon exiting the cave, a group of people were waiting. The three finally found them. The main character of the commission tied up the Duke. It was said he would use his body to cause chaos. Aben panicked. Is it a dog? No, Fiona, Kyung said. I heard from the dragon that many in the group were injured, so he fought alone as bait. Fiona asked. If the Duke is harmed, what will you do? He answered. I won't let him give up like that ever again. Me too, said Aben. Fiona, along with Kyung and Sigrun, moved forward until they reached a group of people. Fiona shouted loudly. Good. It's time to catch the second dragon. Is everyone ready? Let's go. Her eyes were full of determination and resolve. Renatus possessed the strongest vitality among the 4 dragons. That was the name of the dragon Clement Edward was fighting. At that moment, countless arrows flew toward the dragon's scales. Suddenly, a shout rang out. Be careful not to get blown away by its wings. The group fought fiercely against the dragon. The voice continued. Form up, it's on the right. Fiona looked toward the shout. The dragon's wings flapped. The voice ordered again. It's leaving! The bow was ready. Fiona focused intensely on the battle and shouted, Clement Edward! A red dragon lunged to bite the blue dragon's neck. The blue dragon was injured and struggled. She dodged the group. Fiona thought silently, I can't let it escape. Suddenly she shouted, Clement Edward, here! The red dragon glanced at her. Sigrun heard her shout, thought of something and yelled, Wait, Fiona, don't tell me! She looked at it, extending her hand with a very determined gaze and said, Take me with you. Then Clement Edward carried Fiona on his back, flying through the blizzard. He asked her, Why does a human follow me? She replied, Just think of me as a missile attached to your plane. Fight, dragon. He didn't understand at all. She blushed slightly, cleared her throat, and said, Ahem. Well, I'm your weapon. Just chase that dragon. After digesting her words, he darted forward. His voice rang out. There it is, she said. Clement Edward, fly above Renatus. He asked, What do you intend to do? She began casting magic with one hand and said, I'll make it fall to the ground. What do you think? The red dragon thought for a moment and quickly decided, Do it. Fiona cast her magic. A beam shot out and struck the blue dragon. The blue dragon was truly knocked to the ground, apparently seriously injured. Clement Edward quickly swooped down to deliver a finishing blow. Renatus's blood soaked the white snow. It was completely dead. The storm calmed completely. Clement Edward said solemnly, Finally, you can rest in peace. My friend, Clement Edward's voice echoed in her mind. The human mage asked, What is your name? I'm Fiona Halo, she replied. Clement Edward said, That is the name of the one who will rule this world in the near future. Certainly. You go for the sake of my lost friend, she answered. Yes, that is Renatus Ref, the bravest dragon. Clement Edward sighed. It's been a long time since a human called that name. He looked at the blue dragon's corpse. Slowly he asked, You called the forgotten name of ours. Tell me, who are you really? She hesitated for a moment, then said, I am the one who created you and this world. Clement Edward's eyes flashed. She continued, However, I have failed 7 times to write the ending for this world. Clement Edward narrowed his eyes. He slowly spoke, So whose body are you inhabiting? She was a bit surprised and answered, This body is not mine but belongs to a girl who lived a sad life because of me. She answered as if speaking to herself, I think this is my punishment. Clement Edward asked, Is that so? She asked. Really? You're not angry at me? After all, we have endured hundreds of years and caused suffering to other beings. However, in thousands of years our lives have been very happy. Those years were as bright as dawn, sweet as wine and brilliant as gemstones. Clement Edward seemed to sink into memories and said, If you are the one who brought suffering to us, then it also means those hands gave us happiness. It's really foolish to forget a happy life, just because of a moment of pain. She just silently listened as it spoke. When the sun sets, it always emits the last rays of light. Even though life doesn't unfold as we wish, and it may not always be full of joy and brightness, it still has meaning. Because thanks to this long life, I have more joy than misfortune. We wouldn't know those things if we weren't created. The dragon lowered its head close to her, gently pressing against her body as if to comfort her. It continued speaking unfinished words so she could cast away guilt. And I will be by your side, young creator. She heard Clement Edward speak and seemed to realize something no one had ever told her before. She reached out to stroke its nose and said, This world was created for me and it has undergone many changes because of me. But this is the first time anyone has forgiven me. Thinking this, her mind felt like a stream of water washed over it, brighter than ever. But then she said, When the sunset gradually fades, you will be imprisoned in eternal darkness. She looked at her shadow as if speaking to that AI. Will you forgive me? At that moment the dragon gave her something and said, If you carry this, it will be useful someday. It was a red crystal shining with magical light. Clement Edward explained, This gemstone is a crystal containing the power of a dragon. Our friend lost their stone when they lost their sanity. She intended to refuse. You don't have to give it to me, Clement Edward interrupted, taking it and wishing you always have wisdom. She asked, You want me to bring the hearts of other dragons here, right? It replied, Yes. I want to rest with them. You should leave now. I can hear the sound of people searching through the mountain ranges. She suddenly realized she had forgotten about Sigrun's group and ignored them. She continued asking Clement Edward, Will you stay here? It answered yes. Until you bring back the hearts of our friends, I will fall into a deep sleep to protect the last remaining piece of reason, young creator. Don't worry too much about the fate of our friends or anything else. You are just harvesting the crop. From the seeds you have sown, Fiona smiled and said she would try, then slowly left. Clement Edward also left, went to Renato's body, lay down and gradually fell asleep. Fiona turned to look at that scene silently without speaking. Her footsteps gradually disappeared from sight, thinking to herself she had never liked the cold in Halo, but maybe now it was a good thing. This endless winter would become their eternal resting place. After that day, we had protected the walls of Halo. Then there was a celebration party for the soldiers, raising glasses. The group shouted joyfully together. And that was the time for the soldiers to celebrate their achievements. Meanwhile, the gloomy face of Sigrun, kneeling on the ground, was none other than Fiona. She thought to herself, I have utterly failed. A knock on the door sounded. Sigrun, are you in there? In the room, Sigrun was sitting cleaning his sword. Fiona entered with an awkward expression. Sigrun was still a bit sulky but said, "Come in." She stepped in and found a seat. After a moment of silence, she spoke. "Are you drunk?" He answered no. She continued asking, "So are you mad at me?" Sigrun said nothing aloud but thought to himself, "How could I be mad at her?" Then he said, "I want to talk to you about today." Suddenly he hugged her tightly and said, since things turned out well, he couldn't say anything else. She knew what he meant. He was worried about her, that he was angry because she left alone. Facing danger made him extremely worried. And she said, "But if there's anything you want, you can always tell me." Then he said something unrelated. "Those guys at the party kept clinging to you, calling you the savior or something like that. He wanted to bury them alive one by one," she helplessly said. "Aside from that, talk about something else," he seriously said then. Said he knew the secret of the dragon you were hiding. She didn't answer immediately. Avoiding it, she said wait for another time. He pushed her down to lie down. Then, what else could he ask of her? He thought silently. Right. Sometimes seeing him so vulnerable made me want to test how much he trusts me, she said to Sigrun. She touched his forehead. Relax your facial muscles, he thought. He wanted to make her carefree expressions sink. Immersed in pleasure, she said to him, "You're too heavy." "Wait a moment." He said nothing. She continued, "I told you you're too heavy, didn't you hear?" He was speechless, thinking to himself that doubt was the problem. He kissed her neck softly, making her stunned. "Sigrun," he asked her, "Fiona, do you really like Halo that much? Risk riding that giant dragon?" She heard him ask and answered, honestly, I never thought I would like this place. I thought I would call, being here is work that I care about. She thought bitterly. If I care too much about it, I'll easily go crazy. She continued speaking. But after a long time, all the faces of the people in Halo City appeared in her mind. Even Aben made me realize how much I have missed this place. That's why I want to try harder from now on. She smiled unconsciously. Instead of thinking about ruling Halo as a duty, she wanted to do it as a passion. He silently listened to her speak, then smiled lightly. He knew she would do very well. She sat in his lap and looked up at that familiar face. She asked, "Do you really think so?" He said to himself. "I always knew. You're the only one I truly have feelings for, but now I have more secrets and more things I care about." He became petty again. He said, "I know you will be the best ruler of Halo. But Fiona, you have to treat me better. Later I might be more troublesome than you think." Sigrun recalled when Fiona climbed onto the red dragon's back. Clement could only helplessly watch her gradually disappear. The only thing he could keep was just a torn piece of his robe that she left behind. "But Fiona, you will have to treat me better later. Maybe I'll be more troublesome than you think." That was Sigrun's words to Fiona just now. He hugged her tightly as if afraid she would disappear. She had more secrets, making her harder to grasp. He wanted to know more about her. She gently rubbed his shoulder and whispered, "Sigrun, I can endure everything because you are always by my side." She hugged him again and continued speaking. "So you can say I'm stronger because of you. That's why you are very precious to me." The words, softly whispered by him, were like, if it were only him, he wouldn't realize how miraculous it was. He muttered in his heart, "Definitely, you left from the most precious the more you grow up. The stronger you become, the further you drift away from me," he said. "Fiona, you are more precious to me than anyone." But in truth, in his heart, he wanted to add, "Sometimes I want you to be weak so you will completely depend on me." Although he knew how despicable and cowardly that was, love sometimes is a selfish desire to possess. The more you love, the more you want to hold on. Sigrun was the same. He wanted to keep Fiona from ever leaving him. His desire to possess her was too great. Sometime later, we returned to the capital. Fiona was tired, stretched, and said, "Finally done." She thought to herself, "The problem has been solved. We will return to normal life. Probably my vacation is over too." At that moment, a guard spoke up. "Miss Fiona, I'm very glad you returned safely." She reflexively turned around and recognized the speaker. She said, "Lord Leander, I just arrived and there's already something to check," she said wearily. He replied, "I really hate this job even though you just arrived. But I'm really glad you're back," he honestly said. "I thought this was something we could handle ourselves. But I still think it should be reported to you." Then he handed her some reports after she left for Halo. "The number of people loitering around the villa area has increased." She read the report and thought silently, "I have received reports about this since I returned from the Dead Land. They keep lurking around the villa. But that's not enough to arrest and lock them up if they break in. That's another matter. Thinking of this, she asked, "Do you think we should increase security?" He replied, "No, as usual, I'm not sure if they have bad intentions. They don't hide their movements and don't try to break in. They run away at the slightest warning. And something stranger happened today." He paused a bit and continued, "I think you personally heard what happened." After a while, Fiona arrived at the mansion door. A cute commoner girl looked at her with serious eyes. Fiona thought to herself that this girl was no older than 10. The girl then asked, "Are you Fiona?" Fiona replied, "Yes, that's right. What's your name?" She thought to speak politely to the girl first. The girl answered, "Please." Fiona continued, "All right, please, did you come to my house for something?" The girl honestly said, "Yes, I want to ask if you really can resurrect my brother." Fiona was stunned. "Who told you that?" "My mother," the girl replied. Fiona helplessly asked, "Can you tell me your mother's name?" Then she heard the girl answer with a very ordinary name. She thought to herself that it was a common name, with a rate of 4 out of 10 women having that name. Fiona asked, "Did your mother tell you who told her?" The girl said, "Mother said she heard it from a very noble nobleman. Her mother called that person the Count." At this point, she understood everything clearly. Aha! Fiona's face hardened. "I understand what's going on. So that's it. How dare he use me for his work?" she thought in her head. A face appeared along with a name. "Bill Gates." The girl's voice continued in her ear. "My mother said my brother was punished by heaven because he did something wrong. That's why the family hasn't been able to bury him in the tomb yet. But with the help of the Count, she said he can come back to us. And the 3 of us family members can live happily." The more Fiona heard, the colder her face became, but she kept her voice normal. "Does your mother miss your brother very much?" Liz said, "She misses him very much. The 3 of us have lived together since my father passed away." Fiona thought to herself, although the family was poor, of course, parents would take the best care of their children. But in this child's case, it was different. She continued to ask, "Tell me, when was the last time you saw your mother?" 3 days ago, the girl replied. Fiona thought to herself that meant she hadn't been home since then. On this side, the girl continued telling, "But my mother is still kind. Before my brother died, I really missed my mother and brother." She looked at the girl thoughtfully. This girl sacrificed blindly for her mother, but that didn't mean she could deceive her. The girl asked Fiona that question again. "Can you make my brother come back to life?" Fiona honestly said, "No, I can't. Once a person is gone, they can't come back to life. Please." At this moment, Fiona seriously said, "But I will do my best to help your mother come back home." Leander the guard had led the girl Liz away. Only Fiona remained standing, lost in thought. "I have witnessed many people lose their families in Halo. I can't help everyone in the same situation. The best thing I can do is protect those still alive." But it still made her furious. "How dare he drag me into this?" Fiona asked the guards behind her. "So Cax, what do you think about this situation?" Someone spoke up. That person was making slanderous rumors to defile her reputation. "Miss, you are the sole heir of Halo. So this is a serious insult to Halo's honor. Even if we have to oppose the head of the nobility, we cannot let this go." The words of the blonde guard were agreed upon by the guards behind him. They all shouted in agreement, "That's right. We must make him pay for his crimes, principal and interest." Fiona smiled satisfied, thinking to herself, "The proud warriors of the North have not forgotten Halo's creed." She answered them, "Cax, you're right. I think the same." In her heart, she thought, "I really like their reaction just as I expected." In her mind, she recalled information about Bill Curtis. Bill Curtis is the 4th son of the Curtis family. Unlike the 3 older brothers, he had no special talents and did not inherit any assets from his father. Therefore, he always complained about his miserable life. However, luck came when he least expected it. Surviving the shadow of death, unlike his brothers, he returned to his mansion. Because of that, he made an impression and was chosen when everyone became powerless. With the frequent appearance of darkness, they began to listen more seriously to Bill's words. The more people sacrificed to the darkness, the more people lost their loved ones. Bill not only ran a secret noble society, the more people sacrifice for the darkness, the more people lose their loved ones. Bill not only runs a secret noble society, he also frequently delivers sermons in shabby buildings and large halls. When people fall into sadness and blind helplessness, their despair becomes Bill Curtis's power. Scene changes to the prince's palace. Fiona was surprised by the news Sigrun brought up that Miss Eunice was attacked. Have they found the culprit yet? He answered yes, he was caught red-handed. She asked who ordered him. He replied no one ordered him. He is just an ordinary man, but there is something unusual about him. He seems to worship Bill Gates's ideology very much. During the interrogation, he said, Bill Gates is the Lord of Darkness and the punisher of sins. She thought to herself that Eunice has the power to fight darkness so she might be able to resist their Lord. Unexpectedly, he has such a great influence on the people. She said, have we increased her guards yet? Has her injury healed? He answered, she has. I heard she was not seriously hurt, but she was severely shocked. Will you go visit her? He thought, I will go as soon as I hear the news. Here, she could speak again. She was thinking about what gift to give her to help her recover quickly. Is the mind of the man behind this enough to be a gift? She continued. Sigrun, I need a favor. He replied, go ahead and say it. She calmly said, maybe you don't want to do this, but there's no other way. You can go meet your father and tell him about Bill Cosby, and you should charm him a little. At that moment, he wondered why. She smiled brightly and answered, you know how arrogant His Majesty is. I'm sure he will find this very annoying. Actually, Curtis is challenging the Emperor by going around and boasting that he is the chosen one. You just need to make Bill Curtis really annoying. You know, there's a small chance he might start a rebellion. For example, this is a bit distorted from the truth. He heard her say that and smiled dangerously. So, I need to charm His Majesty enough so that he won't mind if I touch the Curtis family, right? He muttered. I always knew you would be a formidable opponent. She smiled calmly and said, stop it. I won't go that far. The dark sky scene at some mansion, a man's voice sounded, it seems you have finally made a decision. The speaker was none other than Bill Gates. At that moment he smiled slyly and said, welcome to my mansion. Miss Fiona must have heard that voice in the dark. Fiona looked at his unpleasant face. She resolutely said, of course I have made a decision. I decide to eliminate you. Fiona raised her sharp eyes. I must get rid of Count Castus. What you told me is true. Fiona was now talking with Bill Curtis, Miss Fiona. She wondered if that voice also heard interference like a hallucination. No, she answered herself. No, that's not a hallucination, she replied to him. Yes, I heard it, he said to her. Then my guess was right. I have heard many rumors about you. Clearly, you and I were given some revelation. Now let's go, everyone is waiting. He gestured, inviting her to go somewhere. On the dark corridor, the light was just enough to see their feet. Fiona thought she heard the sound of several people behind this curtain. Exactly how many people are gathering underground? Bill walked while telling her his story. When I returned as the living one, the only survivor of the hunt with Cax, my brother. Even beasts must avoid me. After that day, I definitely heard the call of God, and He chose me to save humanity from ignorance. At first, no one believed me, but as darkness appeared more often, I was fortunate to gather a large group of followers. She thought, too many people have died, yet He is grateful. Suddenly, a woman's voice spoke up. Actually, I have something to ask you, Count Curtis. A shabby woman rushed forward. She grabbed Bill Curtis's arm and said, I have waited for you, sir. Are you sure my son will come back to life? What I gave you is all I have. My son was a good boy. He took care of his sister by traveling the country selling goods. God must have made a mistake to take him. The woman's voice begged painfully, almost screaming, Please, I beg you, save my son. Bill was impatient and didn't listen to the whole sentence. He kicked her, making her fall in front of Fiona. He coldly said, I think I told you to wait. I said your God is still sleeping in the darkness and has not forgiven your son. Fiona at this moment cannot stand to hear another word from this devil in disguise. If this person says one more word, I will speak up. Enough already, Count Curtis. Do you really think you are the chosen one? How foolish. This world is full of people trapped in their own illusions. Just like you. You survived purely because of luck. And the only truth here is that you are nothing but a worthless liar, she thought silently. People like him cannot bear the truth that they are just ordinary people, Fiona continued. That kind of coincidence is not enough to excuse your actions. He was exposed by her. Not only did he not react negatively, but he also smirked. I don't care, she thought. Do you think I care about you? The truth was, he tore off the veil, looking at the crowd below who kept screaming. With one hand holding her waist and the other holding her hand, he spoke loudly. The truth is, you will sacrifice yourself for my Lord here tonight. The Lord of Darkness will possess your body right here. That is the only reason why you and I were chosen. Through you, I will prove to these people how special I am. She looked up in shock, worried. It can't be. That really is darkness, he warned her. And you'd better not use your power unless you want your flames to burn down this entire oil-soaked basement. I will kill everyone here, he shouted to everyone. Everyone, listen up! The Lord of Darkness will possess Fiona Halo's body to come here and answer our call, he said proudly. Now, shall we begin? Suddenly, he blinked. Not only him, but Fiona was also doubting what was happening. The darkness had been hovering above. Bill stepped back, not expecting this, panicking. No, this can't be a mistake. Thinking this through, he ordered all Curtis soldiers. This information must not leak out. Everyone here must die. Kill them all, including women and children. I can always find new followers. Cax, why are you still standing there? Hurry! The people below were enchanted but still had some reason left. At this moment, fear made them retreat. Can it be? A calm voice sounded, mocking this as a joke. I really want to see how far he can go. The speaker was Aben, who just removed his hood. Accompanying him were Sigrun and the Halo household. The wind direction had shifted. Fiona stood above, looking at everything emotionlessly. Sigrun came from behind her. Fiona, are you okay? Are you hurt anywhere? She looked toward Bill and replied, I'm fine, but it seems the problem is over there. He looks quite shocked. Bill was still collapsing, his eyes empty, staring into space. Sigrun placed a hand on Fiona's shoulder. Is it okay? Please say something to stop me. If you don't, I might tear that bastard to pieces with my own hands. Fiona placed her hand on his. It's okay, Sigrun. I don't want to stop you either. Bill's subordinates were tied up with their hands behind their backs. Aben stepped on one of them. I've been sick of being treated like a wounded animal and finally getting to use my real body. It's refreshing. Aben's subordinate reported, Sir, all Curtis soldiers have been subdued. He laughed. Oh, that fast? They were so careless they didn't realize Cax, the Knight of Halong, was disguised. They looked exactly like those people. Fiona's suspicion was correct. Fiona stepped close to Bill, whispered into his ear, Bill, say it yourself that you are useless. You have no special power. You are just an ordinary person. You toyed with the hopes of honest people, so now you must pay. Her voice was the same as mine. Have you proven your specialness yet? Now it's your turn. You just denied your own specialness. If so, I hope to hear the same voice this time. You are nothing. Every word from Fiona made Bill panic greatly. He bowed his head and said to those around, I can't do anything. I can't save the dead. He bowed his head and said to those around, I can do nothing. I cannot save the dead. Even the gods, it's all lies. Bill's words caused a wave of outrage from the townspeople. What are you saying? What about the money we've contributed? Until now, what? You said you could save them? Bill turned to Fiona and said, Miss Fiona, I followed your instructions already. Before he finished, the townspeople grabbed his collar. Everyone rushed in to beat him. Fiona looked at him and thought she vaguely understood why SAO they were so angry. Probably because they realized the truth that I had forgotten all this time, that countless people live uncountably. A happy ending absolutely cannot exist. After that day, Bill Curtis was accused by many nobles of the actions he caused. Of course, that happened thanks to Libya's help and Fiona's influence. The Emperor generously overlooked Bill Curtis's suffering. Fiona visited Eunice Sigrun, who would never show mercy to the Emperor. I was very curious why he behaved so gently. She regretted. I couldn't bring Bill Curtis's head as a get-well gift for you because the Emperor needs to investigate Bill further. Eunice smiled. A gift from the heart is enough, miss, but it seems he has fallen into despair and madness, so there was no gain there. So what happened to those who followed Count Curtis? Fiona replied. Surely they will overcome this incident by all means. Of course, in a more normal way, Eunice continued. Fiona, I have something to tell you. Fiona asked Eunice. So, Miss Eunice means she wants to become someone everyone can rely on emotionally, right? Yes, Eunice replied. Yes, that's right. Of course, I'm not that great a person, and I'm not good at much either. Fiona thought it was no problem at all. From the beginning, that was the position of the saint. Everyone will find something to rely on like this time. She asked Eunice, That's not a problem, but I'm curious about your reason. No matter how determined you are, miss, this is a very difficult path. Eunice answered, I think I want to help everyone. Fiona wondered, Even those who harmed you, miss, aren't you angry at them? Eunice continued, That's why I can't be angry. I think that's strange. I don't know if you think it's hypocrisy or not, but I'm okay with it. I think this time I also bear some responsibility because I couldn't make everyone feel secure. I also want to do this more sincerely. Moreover, the people I want to help include you, miss. Fiona looked at Eunice and thought that a sincere heart wanting to protect someone would make Eunice stronger. Everyone is changing and always trying their best in their position, not because of me, but because they want to change themselves. Fiona smiled at Eunice. I believe Miss Eunice can do well. I will support your determination. Eunice thanked Fiona and thought to herself, I have to try harder. Outside in the castle garden, Sigrun was waiting for Fiona. Seeing her, he said, Fiona, you're out early. Aben has already gone to check the carriage. Fiona said nothing and ran to hug Sigrun tightly. Sigrun, let's get married. Sigrun was surprised and grabbed Fiona's shoulder. Fiona, why did the story suddenly turn this way? She replied, because I think there won't be a second man like you appearing in my life again. Sigrun replied, it's not like that. If I hadn't received a confession from Miss Eunice, I don't think I would let a second man, like me, appear in your life. I can't keep up with your flow. Can you make a promise? To prepare myself, Fiona answered. I just want to live as I am now. She thought about which choice was right and who she really was in this reality. I have seen that this place is no longer a world created from words on paper. I want to live more fully, like what I have seen in this incident. If the darkness wants to take back this body, I might not have much time to prepare. Then she continued to Sigrun, I think I should be honest with my feelings. I also want to start with things that only I can do, like Miss Eunice. She held his hand. Sigrun looked at her lovingly and said, okay, let's get engaged first, Fiona. Aben came in from outside and overheard their whole conversation. He shouted, Sigrun, it's useless. Both Fiona and Sigrun called Aben in vain. Inside the castle, the queen asked Marquis Eris. Marquis Eris, please say it again. Both Marquis Eric and Duke Ernest. Everyone was extremely tense. Eric answered the queen about the matter that someone said Prince Sigrun had returned from Halong. Along with that was the news about the dragon going mad being put to sleep, and matters related to Curtis were not widely known. But the prince's fame was increasing day by day. The queen smiled. She asked the Marquis when men are most careless, and the answer was when they are embracing a woman. Find me someone. Someone both beautiful and charming. Then the queen covered her fan and softly said, if we want to kill the prince, we must create a loophole. In the magnificent palace filled with gold, noble couples were mingling intimately in a corner of the castle where the princess and Can were standing together observing. The entire hall where the festival was taking place, Can reminded the princess to keep her dignity, fearing someone might see her actions. But at that moment, she was looking at a person coming from that direction and asked her beautiful sister, is that Fiona Halong? Then Khan confirmed it and added that she had brought wonderful news, because 2 dragons had been eliminated, and then all the attention of this social season would focus on those 2 people. Just as she finished speaking, the princess suddenly called his name and asked how she looked today. From Khan's perspective, the princess was always beautiful. That was sincere, but she thought it was just words to flatter her. The princess pouted and said, be a little sincere. Khan stopped her with those words and asked why the princess suddenly asked him that. At that moment, the princess replied that she had to seduce him. No, that won't do, but it's a bit dangerous if Sigrun becomes emperor. If Sigrun ascends the throne, a storm might arise. So the only viable candidate left is her, and it will be her. After entering the palace, Fiona Halong, with a glamorous appearance, lightly touched her earrings and thought about their origin. It turned out they were made from processed jade that Clement Edward had given her before. At first, when wearing this precious item, she didn't feel anything. The package containing the earrings also seemed crude, so she could only slowly explore what she could do with these earrings. At that moment, she also felt a slight itch in her ear. Suddenly, she heard someone call Fiona from behind. She turned around and saw a noble young lady behind her. Libya's quick thought was that only one person could make Libya use honorifics like that. It was the princess. She gently bowed and introduced herself as Fiona Halong of the Halong family. The princess, with a calm appearance, observed Fiona but was inwardly full of turmoil. Wonderful. The person the princess must seduce is someone like this. If the princess can seduce Fiona, then her blindly loving brother will follow the princess. The princess's main goal is her, and her brother is just an accessory. So the princess decided to make Miss Fiona side with her. After a brief thought, the princess greeted her again. Fiona was very happy to meet her and asked if she could call her Miss Fiona. Of course, Fiona would not refuse the princess's request. Seeing that, the princess also reminded her not to be so formal in addressing the princess. Fiona replied that she would call her Princess Arya. Meeting in such circumstances, Fiona's heart was also full of questions because Sigrun had never praised his sister as beautiful as this. If not careful, the princess and her side would become political opponents. Then the princess asked if Fiona was free so they could chat. The princess had been sick since childhood and rarely went out to see the world, so whenever she heard news about Fiona, she wanted to meet her to hear stories. The princess was curious about Halong and the dragon. With the princess's beautiful appearance, no matter how Fiona's heart was, she was willing to share the stories she had experienced. They had a long conversation together. When the party ended, Fiona went back and told Sigrun about the princess. She said that his sister was very cute and always looked at her with sparkling eyes. Sigrun said it seemed the princess treated her well, right? Of course not, Fiona said the princess had no hostility toward them, saying it seems the princess treats NDT0 well, right? Of course not. Fiona said the princess has no hostility towards us, so let's just be friendly with the princess. She is your sister after all. Then Sigrun reluctantly said if Fiona doesn't mind, that's fine. In the crowd, someone whispered that the queen has appeared. Fiona wondered, although this is a party organized by the royal family, the self-reflection period is over, right? Sigrun replied that the reform period is over. Hearing that, Fiona felt regretful because if she had known, she would have brought Aben, followed and thought to herself that next time she must bring him along. Sigrun added that a few days ago such an incident had happened, and asked Fiona if she saw the person beside the queen. Fiona was stunned, and seemed to have recognized who the woman with black hair was on the queen's podium, saying it had been a long time since they last met. So today she brought a wonderful entertainment for everyone. The music started playing, accompanied by the pure and holy voice of the black-haired woman. Everyone listened as if mesmerized, and Fiona asked Sigrun with affirmation if this was that person. Everyone at the party was attracted to the singing of that woman. They seemed to be revived with every lyric. Exclamations of "so good" were heard a lot. Fiona asked if the person the queen brought was the one named Gahi. Just after finishing the sentence, she suddenly noticed that Sigrun had fallen into deep thought. She called his name and asked if he was okay. Sigrun replied that everything was fine after the party ended. Fiona returned home and saw a letter on the table. Her father's voice called her, "Fiona." The marriage proposal letter had arrived. After opening the letter, she was shocked when reading its contents, and exclaimed, "Oh, so he is the second son of the Count family." Fiona thought to herself, maybe I shouldn't pretend too much, this is really awkward. Seeing her daughter's expression, Count Green slowly said, "Just say you have no intention of explaining." Fiona lightly replied in her mind. Now, she had many thoughts about the current political situation. As Halong's power increased, more people would want to pull strings, otherwise Sigrun would also be busy with his own work. Oh, this is a big deal. The more she thought, the more anxious she became. Lord Green added, "You look like a noble lady." Because that was the truth. If you want to line up at Halong, the easiest way is to propose to me, because I am the only daughter of Duke Halong. Fiona thought so. Without waiting long in thought, Lord Green explained his previous statement. Because Fiona is living a life like a battle, that's why. You really are a noble lady. And he affirmed further, in the future things like this will happen often. And Lord Green reminded her to consult him as her father. Fiona felt helpless and asked, "Why does father say this so confidently?" Lord Green coldly replied, "Or should we end them? It's like picking fruit from a tree." Fiona was full of exclamation marks. No matter what, father must not eliminate the suitors. And she added, "Anyway, I am dating Sigrun." So she would reject them in the most normal way. Hearing that, her father, sitting leisurely on the chair, replied, "Your situation and Sigrun's are the same. Otherwise, the Emperor is also very concerned about Sigrun's fiancé." It seemed that because the children became famous, the Emperor intended to do so. Count Green sarcastically said, hearing his father say that Fiona seemed to understand because in high society, if the relationship is not officially recognized by documents, it is not considered official. She wondered to herself if she should quickly get engaged. Lord Green observed Fiona's expression and added, "If anyone obsessively bothers you like that guy in the future, just tell me, I will make sure his body can't do those tricks anymore." Fiona was indifferent and said, "Wouldn't it be better if I got engaged to Sigrun? If I get engaged to Sigrun now, there will definitely be trouble." Moreover, Sigrun hasn't officially asked for my permission as your guardian yet, Lord Green replied. After hearing her father's answer, Fiona was silent for a while and then asked, "So, can I get engaged to him?" "That Sigrun?" Lord Green firmly answered no and added, "Until the earth falls into my eyes." Fiona smiled gently and said, "I have to go get some soil from the garden then." After hearing that, Lord Green didn't know what else to say. At the royal palace, the emperor sat majestically on the throne with 2 attendants standing beside him and called the person standing below. "Now you have grown up and are about to reach marriageable age." The queen said this. The queen said you were very close to the young lady of the Halong family. Hearing that, Sigrun felt extremely disgusted and thought, recently the emperor has interfered a lot in this matter and that matter. The disgusting person on the high emperor continued to speak. The Halong family is also an issue, but he dragged out his voice and continued, "I heard that young lady is an adopted daughter." Below, Sigrun silently listened, then clenched his fists and thought, could it be that the empress is a gossip? Indeed, it was like that. He recalled the time at the banquet hall. It was the same. It didn't stop there, the emperor continued. Moreover, Duke Aben is a cunning man. Perhaps he has been whispering to a young person like you and told you to marry his adopted daughter. Sigrun silently recalled the past events. It was indeed like that, Duke Aben always said. "Marry my daughter." And Fiona always replied that she didn't like it. The emperor continued. "Later, I hope you will take good care of this father. When you choose your wife, you should not be swayed by momentary emotions." Sigrun's heart was full of resistance to the emperor's words. He wanted to reply no need, but now is not a good time to invite more hostility from the emperor. He still continued talking about the issue of choosing a wife for Sigrun. "Of course, the lineage and family of your wife must be good and trustworthy if you care about the Halong young lady. Then I will allow you to enjoy it as your brother did." Sigrun felt it was absurd and had nothing to say. He still clenched his fists, suppressing his anger, and replied, "I take my leave first," then turned his back and walked straight to the door. After a while, he saw a blonde woman approaching. It was the empress. He stared at her. She said, "Don't stare at me like that after all. It's just a momentary feeling," she asked further. "Or do you desire the power of Halong, so you are exploiting her?" Sigrun coldly replied, "It seems this is not something you need to worry about. See how you control your son," the empress said. Both standing next to each other, the opposing aura radiating from the two was very strong. The empress snapped, "Sigrun, arrogant name. You are just like your mother. You fled like a little mouse." Her face was very angry at this moment. Sigrun replied, "Yes, you are right. But now is different from back then," he said, without turning his head. In the dark space, the empress's voice echoed. "I will definitely send you to where your mother is." Seeing the empress standing in the shadows as if surrounded by countless spirits, she said. Sigrun answered, "No, not only him, but everyone is related to my mother's death. I think you should prepare to beg forgiveness from the women you have killed. That would be better." The palace space was empty. Sigrun and the empress stood apart. The light seemed to express the opposition between them. Sigrun continued walking. The empress's voice echoed from behind like a waiting challenge. "You are the one who must wait and see how far that momentary feeling will go. Then see, because today, outside, the sunlight streamed through the tree canopy, casting shadows on the tiled floor beneath the trees. There was a beautiful girl holding a bouquet of elegant flowers, enhancing her beauty. That was Fiona. She was recalling the recent encounter when a man approached and said, "I have met young lady Fiona Halong." She thought it was a big deal because she just received a bouquet from that man, someone she didn't know. But in confusion, she accidentally accepted it. Though it seemed he was a servant of some count's house, she was wondering, should she throw it away? The thought was interrupted by a call. "Young lady Fiona." She turned around and saw the princess approaching. The princess looked at the bouquet in her hand and said, "You shouldn't hold that casually," and asked, "If you don't mind, I'll take it." "It's often used as a drug," she reminded Fiona like that. On the other side of the palace corridor, a man and a woman stood facing each other. Sigrun and the black-haired girl standing next to the empress. At the banquet, the black-haired girl called Sigrun. Sigrun grabbed her wrist and questioned, "Why did you appear at the ball?" "I remember in our negotiation, there was no such content." She looked into Sigrun's eyes and said, "It seems the rumor hasn't spread inside the hall yet. Dancing, right? We are known by the palace servants for sharing a room if I appeared at the ball. That rumor would be widely discussed, so the empress didn't miss that opportunity." While speaking, Sigrun noticed 2 servants were standing nearby. Both silently understood that things unfolded like this. It seemed that everything had become more awkward. In Fiona's house, the flower vase on the table was filled with red flowers. Very familiar, the same type of flowers Fiona had received before from a duke's servant. The servant told Fiona that, "I put the bouquet sent to the young lady into the vase." Fiona asked again. "Sent to me? Why do you think? These flowers look like the ones I received last time? Isn't their scent a bit strong?" The servant replied, "No, I don't smell anything. It's so strong it makes your head dizzy. In short, if these flowers are sent again, just throw them all away." Fiona instructed the servant like that and continued to think, where exactly did these flowers come from? If they are dangerous plants, they must be strictly controlled. The cultivation of them. Not that they should be banned. Thinking back, when she first received the bouquet, she didn't know exactly why Princess Arya helped her, but at that time, without her, something serious might have happened. It seemed she knew well about this type of flower. Fiona had many questions to ask the princess, but Sigrun appeared midway, so she and the princess couldn't share many things, and the situation was resolved. She thought she really had to discuss this properly with him. A knock on the door sounded. Count Green called Fiona. "If you are ready, then let's depart to the prince's palace." "Yes, I was just about to go down," Fiona replied. Hearing this, Count Green reminded, "You see him too often." Fiona answered that today she went there without notice, so she only talked to him briefly. Count Green and Fiona were heading to the prince's palace when they met a red-haired girl coming from the other side. Fiona called out, "Miss Livia!" Livia greeted and said, "Miss Fiona, are you going to the prince's palace?" "Yes, I entered the palace with the duke, but I am on a personal errand." "But your expression," Fiona replied. Hearing that, Livia said, "Miss Fiona, listen carefully. Do you know the rumors spreading among the noble class after the ball?" Fiona's face was full of surprise and she asked, "What rumors?" Livia sighed softly and said, "Earlier I heard from the prince's palace maid passing by that, do you remember the singer who performed at the last ball? The one the queen brought along and His Highness Sigrun. It is said that they recently went together into a room." Fiona's expression was now incredulous as she walked through the magnificent hall. She met Sigrun's guard. He greeted Miss Fiona. She said she came to see His Highness the Prince. He hesitated and replied that His Highness just went out. Hearing this, Fiona asked again, "What did you say?" "Someone saw His Highness enter the palace already. But he said, Miss Fiona, currently His Highness is absent for a while." Suddenly, a man stepped forward and asked if she wouldn't mind going for a walk with him. Fiona walked together with a black-haired man inside the prince's palace. Sigrun and the two were silent. The atmosphere was a bit awkward. Fiona was embarrassed and thought to herself, what exactly is this situation? Both were conversing mechanically. A bit funny. Suddenly Fiona was startled and thought, wait, doesn't this situation look more like an affair? Why am I drawn to this handsome face? After a while of silence, she spoke up. "But we haven't introduced ourselves yet. Looking closely, you resemble His Highness Sigrun a bit. You're recognizing me and you're leaving His Highness's room. What happened?" The handsome black-haired man turned to look at her. His mouth curved slightly and said, "My name is Cax. Sigrun's mother is my sister. I have also heard a lot about you from His Highness." She was a bit surprised looking at him. Meaning His Highness is Sigrun's cousin? She silently compared their faces. The face in front of her was less refined, with longer hair and more romantic, but overall still quite similar. And he was also thinking, actually, I didn't intend to reveal so much, but if she saw me coming out of the prince's room, so I didn't intend to reveal so much. But if she saw my image from the prince's room, it's better to clarify my identity, I guess. This is the first time she's met me this close, but it seems she still doesn't recognize me. Fiona held her forehead and muttered, "Why does Sigrun always let me meet your family alone?" he asked. "Aren't you looking for someone named Gahi in the rumors? What? Why didn't you ask me?" She answered, "Ah, that matter. Instead of looking for Gahi, I was always searching for His Highness. Even so, I wanted to hear from him directly about the whole situation. Looking at him now, I have confirmed that he is not in the room, so on the contrary, I feel more at ease." "Wait a moment," she said again. Even so, I think Sigrun would never do such a thing." Sigrun's cousin laughed. "Ha, she asked why he laughed. He thought to himself, she really is a more lovable girl than I thought. Then he replied to her, "I have also seen the girl named Gahi, but it seems she is very afraid of the lady, so you don't need to worry. She said that, which is true, because my status also—" She stopped to think, not believing all of Cax's words, but somehow she felt very guilty. After thinking, she continued, "In short, I will listen directly to see how His Highness got involved in that rumor." Cax listened to her while glancing absent-mindedly around. He thought silently, "Since earlier there has been a shadow lurking around here. If it causes a commotion, it would be awkward for me too. Before His Highness returns, I have to keep her here." Cax lowered his voice. "My lady, have you felt anything strange lately?" Scene changes to our Prince Sigrun sweating profusely. Opposite him was Fiona smiling, but he found her very scary. She asked him, "Do you have something to say to me?" He began to explain. First of all, it was all a misunderstanding. Cax stood behind the prince observing both and thought silently, "Oh, so she really is unhappy. Fiona really is unhappy." She said, "Then tell me exactly what that misunderstanding is." He patiently answered her, "Earlier I went out to deal with some soldiers. As for the singer, she has already returned to the queen's place. The queen brought her to the palace a few days before the last ball, and I happened to catch her trying to push that woman into the king's bedroom. I couldn't let her do that, because I know what will happen to ordinary women serving the king at night. It was all the queen's plan, so I had no choice but to intervene in this matter. Even though I knew it was a conspiracy, she knew I wouldn't ignore a woman who would face the same fate as my mother." She picked up the teacup and asked, "So that's why you brought her to your room? I wouldn't like it if you ignored a woman in danger." Slightly surprised, he said, "I understand. At least you told me the truth. Just tell me if you need any help." After Fiona left, only Sigrun and Cax remained in the room. Sigrun looked at Cax unhappily and said, "I told you not to get close to Fiona." Cax stroked his long hair, calmly looking at him and said, "Oh, I'm so scared. I was just trying to shoo away some flies around her while you were away." Sigrun still had a serious attitude and said, "Stop joking. Be serious a bit. You are already distracting the queen enough, and your act of eating like a singer to attract the queen's attention is risky enough." She bit the bait. Hearing Sigrun's words, Cax was thinking about something else. He no longer looked scared by every word of the woman he loved, but still replied, "All right. I just need His Highness not to forget your promise to me." Sigrun firmly answered him, "I won't forget." Cax picked up the teacup, looking quite scary now, completely different from his usual cheerful appearance. "That's the important thing, bringing the one who harmed my mother and my poor aunt here. I guarantee their blood will spill out of this cup." After finishing his business, Duke Aben stepped out, thinking to himself it had been a few hours already. "I decided to be stubborn and ended up wasting time meeting too many unnecessary people." Thinking back to when Fiona told him, "If father has nothing to do, he should come to the prince's palace with me," he showed a busy expression. "I am a busy man too." Remembering, he silently complained, "Just hearing about Sigrun annoys me. Not to mention, coming here my child was also bothered by the nobles at the gate." He thought of Fiona. She must have gone home after meeting Sigrun. "So, I will get on the next carriage." Suddenly, Aben noticed something and returned to Prince Sigrun, who was now sitting with Cax in the singer's female form. Suddenly, a shout came from outside. Prince Sigrun immediately recognized the voice as Duke Aben's. He stepped out and asked what was going on. Duke Aben said, "Your Highness Fiona came with you, right?" He replied, "I already had a knight escort her back 30 minutes ago." Duke Aben said seriously, "I saw the carriage was still here, so I asked the driver, and he said she forgot something and went back inside the palace." Immediately, Sigrun asked again, "What are you saying? She hasn't returned and disappeared inside the palace?" Duke Aben said seriously, "We don't have time to waste. We must go find her immediately." At that moment, Cax spoke up. "Your Highness, Miss Fiona told me something this morning." Both of them turned around, and he continued, "I saw someone lurking around her and asked if she noticed anything unusual recently. She said yes. Someone had sent her strange bouquets of flowers." After speaking, he glanced at Fiona's expression. He then guessed, maybe it's that person. At that moment, Bill was pinned to the ground by Sigrun. Meanwhile, Duke Aben was putting his arm around Fiona. Aben then spoke, "Sigrun, did you know everything would turn out like this? Because you wanted to hide this from Fiona, I tried not to ask too much. Because everyone has something they don't want others to see. But since things have come out like this, we might as well tell everything." Fiona looked suspiciously at Duke Aben and quietly said, "Aben, Cax is a demon from hell. Everything is my fault. Although I noticed a suspicious person lurking near the young lady, I was afraid my identity would be discovered if things got chaotic, so I couldn't tell anyone. So now I will tell everything." Fiona silently thought, "Is that person Gahim? What is he doing?" Wait, that voice. Could it be? Fiona continued to speculate. Cax said, To gain your trust, I have to start by showing my true self. Aben smirked and said, So, you're a man. Meanwhile, Sigrun covered Fiona's eyes with his hand, leaving both Aben and Cax speechless. Fiona said, Sigrun withdrew his hand. On the way back to the Harrow mansion, Fiona and Aben were talking in the carriage. She said, Surely Sigrun has grasped this matter to some extent, right? Aben was silent for a moment, then said, I don't know either. Fiona continued, Sigrun knew Cax was a man from the start. He lied to you. Aben spoke honestly. He didn't lie about everything because if that kid entered the Emperor's bedroom, he would be discovered as a man, and he would be dead. Fiona still thought, Then why did you hide this from me so much? She asked Aben. Duke Aben? He hummed and said, Wait, keep talking. Are you okay now? Can Dad let me go? He replied, I don't like it. She thought to herself, annoyed. The moonlight gently covered the Harrow mansion's roof. At this hour, Fiona still hadn't slept. She was still thinking about that time when she told Sigrun not to linger near her for now, because she didn't want to see his figure. Now she thought about something else. According to Sigrun, he said he couldn't turn his back on Cax, the person who almost ended up in the same situation as his mother. Cax revealed that he had played a double agent role between the Queen, who didn't know Cax's identity, and Sigrun's cousin. Cax kept apologizing. I'm sorry, but there was only one reason he was angry. He couldn't trust himself. Could that be true? From Sigrun's perspective, he also hid many secrets, and perhaps that lack of trust had accumulated, causing him to need an information network unrelated to himself. While she was lost in thought, a familiar voice rang out. How long do you plan to keep this up? Sigrun had come here late at night like this, just to see her. He said worriedly, Fiona, you'll catch a cold. She thought silently. Anyway, that was the first thing he said after the argument. She said, You should go up to the room, Fiona. She asked, Do you have something to say? He looked at her slowly and said, My aunt helped my mother hide me, but then the Queen's men discovered it, and my aunt passed away. That's why Cax wants to take revenge on the Queen. That's the reason why. She asked if he had something to say. He looked at her slowly and said, My aunt helped my mother take me away to hide. Then the Queen's people discovered us. And my aunt passed away. That's why Cax wants to take revenge on the Queen. That's the reason WHY. Cax pretended to be the Queen's subordinate to find out who followed the Queen's orders back then. And my desire for revenge is the same. I want to kill that person and made such a plan. I hoped you wouldn't know exactly. We just didn't want you to know. She thought, of course, in life, everyone has to keep something absolutely secret. If it's someone you love, it's even more so. Retaliation is just a response to someone's attack, but until now, it's been a different matter. Fiona stood up and touched Sigrun's lips with her finger, thinking to herself, this is the bottom of his heart. Just tell him. It's okay. You don't have to say everything next time if something like this happens again. It's better if you just confess, but you have to know that I've been hurt. Then she hugged him tightly, thinking he had lost the flickering flame in the fireplace to someone else. Decorating the conversation between the two, Isn't this a forbidden flower to plant? Arya, standing nearby, heard this and asked back, But Mother already said it's dangerous. Yet she stood with her hands clasped in front, head slightly bowed, her eyes somewhat timid and shy. I was about to grasp the noble's weakness related to the origin of this flower, but Mother, she picked up the teacup and explained that this plant was quite special. Precisely those belonging to a special group really hated that flower, almost as if they were oppressed by it in the past. The royal court mages eliminated all those flowers and forbade recording their effects. She picked it up intending to sip because that flower only affects those who can use magic. After the conversation, Arya left with her guards. She silently thought, Luckily I confirmed live with Mother. If she received such a bouquet, surely the sender wanted to convey something. Arya turned to ask the person beside her. Can, heard that Miss Fiona entered the palace this morning, right? He replied. Yes, but not now. She has already returned. As the two were about to go down the stairs, Arya decided, Then first, let's go to the prince's palace. At least, let Sigrun know. The two men asked a guard. Arya recognized them. Duke Halong and His Highness the Prince. She hurried forward. It seemed something had happened. The two turned to look at the one calling them. Hey, Sigrun, saw you coming here, Arya. What's the matter? She slowed her steps, holding her dress. We're on our way back after meeting the Queen, Arya guessed. If they were together in the palace, There could only be one reason, she quickly asked. Could something have happened to Miss Fiona? Sigrun nodded in confirmation. Yes. It seems Fiona hasn't returned to the mansion yet. I heard she had other business, but she disappeared inside the palace. How do you know that? Arya felt her guess was correct. Indeed, Miss Fiona must have gone to your palace already. One hand on her chest, Arya confirmed, to discuss with you about a flower in a certain room. Fiona stepped back, smiling faintly, looking bitter. Defeated. It's been a long time since I saw this face again. Because I was confused about Gahi's matter, I forgot to talk about that flower with Sigrun. A drop of blood fell. Next to the shiny black leather shoe was Curtis. His whole body exuding gloom, cold eyes. His bright white hair now stained with blood from a forehead wound. Fiona looked at him coldly and spoke. So, it turns out, I have to give your head to Miss Eunice. In the dim room, only faint light came through the window frame. The two stood facing each other. Satos held a bouquet of red flowers. Fiona mocked. That flower was also sent by the Queen, right? You saved your life, but it seems you've become the Queen's dog. One of her hands clenched tightly. I didn't expect the Queen to exploit a poor, half-mad person like this. She thought silently. Indeed, I wasn't mistaken after entering this room. I continuously couldn't use magic, but still Fiona asked Curtis. The head I just threw the chair at, is it okay? Her hand was already on a book, threatening him. You come at me. This time I'll crush you thoroughly. Curtis was silent, saying nothing. Do you think I'll let you harm me? The two silently watched each other warily. After a while, Curtis spoke. I still can't predict your actions. Fiona threw the bouquet to the floor, watching it burn. I thought if you couldn't use magic, then she is just a lowly and ordinary girl, while the two of them look at the flames burning the Curtis flowers coldly. But she continuously forces me to use the last resort. In the flames, the Lord's words echoed. The Queen wants Miss Fiona to break up with His Highness Sigrun because the Hollong family has turned their backs on Prince Sigrun. Life had already collapsed because of her. He pulled out a small knife and suddenly pressed it close to Fiona, immediately near the voice by the ear, because the Queen, bringing down her reputation to the bottom, was not a bad option. Curtis had clearly thought of the rumor headlines between the two young ladies of Halong. Shocked by the prince's affair who finally fell for another man, isn't this story quite reasonable? She pressed the knife to Fiona's neck. She should have knelt before the Queen from the start. Fiona frowned because of the flower scent making her feel suffocated. Both the girl and these flowers. All because of this matter. Curtis confidently declared this place is the princess's palace. Not receiving anyone's attention, even if discovered by others, it's okay because the more witnesses the better. A foot in high heels stepped forward. A voice rang out making the body tense. If the witness is the owner of the palace. This palace, then what? You can't believe it. The princess usually doesn't like staying in the palace, so normally she wouldn't return this quickly. But the door was smashed open by Sigrun. It was a group of 4. They saw Curtis pressing the knife to Fiona's neck. Seizing the opportunity, Fiona pulled a book off the shelf. What is that? She swung her hand and hit Curtis on the head with the book, her gaze extremely cold and emotionless. The 4 entered. Arya frowned, looking at Curtis fallen on the ground. She looked very helpless because of the scene before her. Honestly, she's had a hard time. Kylie rushed over to Fiona as night fell. Moonlight shone into the room. Don't you have anything to say to me? Fiona crossed her arms and pouted. Sigrun didn't dare to look directly into her eyes. He firmly promised there wouldn't be such a thing again. I won't hurt you a second time. Fiona thought to herself this was a bit weak. Sigrun held her hand, touched each beautiful finger and lifted her hand to gently kiss it. Sigrun's eyes were filled with passionate love as he looked. Fiona, I will listen to whatever you want. She pulled him down and gave him a kiss. Fiona's fair foot rose up due to the height difference between them. I will forgive you, the kiss ended. Fiona explained because Cax is your family, so I will overlook it, Sigrun's gaze. Looked at her very gently, hearing her say that, so now don't be wary of me anymore. He blushed and nodded obediently. Fiona imagined a dog wagging its tail like a puppy. He was startled when Fiona mentioned recent events. I'm sorry, first you just call me trash and then end it. Fiona didn't understand why. Sigrun explained if we seem distant for a while. At least the Queen will bother you less. Fiona wasn't afraid of this. There's no need to do that. But he was very determined. Let me do this. She looked at her man. At times like this he was very stubborn. She asked, What about Cax later? Sigrun replied, Cax has received the necessary information. Now Cax must disguise his identity for safety. Fiona understood. So temporarily Cax must stay in a safe place. She smiled and suggested, should we let Cax stay at the Halong family's house? Sigrun immediately froze upon hearing her say that. Fiona wondered, what's wrong with your expression? Sigrun shook his head. Nothing. I was just thinking. Maybe she still hasn't stopped being angry. He held her hand and called her name. Fiona heard him. No matter what you do, I will always trust you. Sigrun spoke sincerely from the bottom of his heart. Even if you kill me, it's okay. Fiona's eyes widened. Sigrun lifted her hand sincerely, looked into her eyes and declared, no matter what it is, just do as you wish. Time gradually passed. Therefore, the seductive girl manipulated the prince and disappeared from the palace in just one morning. Cax, the palace servant, whispered among themselves. Meanwhile, in the palace and high society, there were many rumors about that person, but the truth about them had not yet been revealed. Finally, the scandal between the prince and Gahi quickly cooled down in the high society like the shattering of glass. The queen was furious because her plans were foiled, of course, that beloved young lady. No, a man was sitting in front of the mirror. That handsome young man was at my house. Cax was holding his own long black hair. Fiona saw him raise the scissors to the already cut strand of hair. You've had long hair for a long time. Aren't you going to regret it? The man's voice sounded in response. I'm a little regretful, but it's okay. Fiona was a bit sad because she felt sorry for him. Can I call you by another name? He nodded. Yes, when I was Gahi, I also used another name. Actually, no one cares about my name. Cax smiled faintly. People are really harsh. Now he had cut off his long hair, leaving a very handsome short hairstyle. Cax looked radiant with Fiona. The young lady was really gentle. Now she was holding the strands of hair he just cut off. I'll make a wig from this hair, he joked. If I ever cross-dress in the future, it might be useful. Fiona looked closely at Cax's hair and face. Indeed, he looked very much like Sigrun. Both looked alike on the outside. Fiona spoke her thoughts. I think if Sigrun were born a girl, then she would look like Cax. Cax asked, I'm not a girl. Fiona was embarrassed. Sorry. He was just joking. It's okay. She thought carefully and felt that Cax's personality was also good. She heard that Cax was her age. Fiona wanted to talk to him. Right. I have something to tell you. Cax looked at her. A banquet table full of dishes appeared. Fiona pushed Cax to sit on the chair. Let's eat. Two maids standing beside, still holding plates of food, trembled as they listened to the conversation between the two. Could it be that you don't like to eat? No, I like it very much because I have to adjust my diet to cross-dress, so it was very hard. Fiona happily said, Good. Then temporarily, please try to gain weight. Losing weight is not good for health. Fiona sat on the chair, but the two sat opposite each other. Cax wondered, Is it okay if I eat with you? Fiona explained, Don't pressure yourself because temporarily the Duke will be very busy, so he can't dine with us. Cax understood and smiled lightly. I see. So the way to get close is to eat together. Chopsticks 9. Dipping sauce 2. Then I will eat with gratitude. Fiona sank into her thoughts. Come to think of it, what is Aben doing lately? After a chaotic moment, I think I found peace for a moment. The door closed with a sigh of relief. Fiona entered her room after the meal. Luckily, he ate better than I thought. Her mood was very good. Later, Cax must adapt well. Her eyes glanced forward. Purple light radiated from a point in the center of the room, until before the terrible hatred directed at me from the curtain. The terrible purple power had a voice. It's time. The time I have long waited for. Fiona looked at the swirling black aura. She was stunned looking at it. Fiona realized the terrible hatred she had been wary of. All this time, the black aura appeared before me, swirling into a sphere, revealing a girl with pure white hair and a face exactly like Fiona. She whispered, Finally, I found you. And Fiona silently watched the woman appear, thinking she was a stranger. But this voice was somewhat familiar, the face exactly like Fiona, as if she recognized me and I recognized her. Fiona? The golden afternoon sunlight signaled the sun setting. Sigrun walked step by step down the corridor. They had dinner together. Fiona, isn't she already too close to Cax? You seriously think you need to be careful. I'm not worried about Fiona, but what I worry about is knowing the situation between her and Cax. How far has it gone? A dark black aura spread out, making Sigrun confused. She should be in her room now. That was the whole person. He froze when he realized it was black smoke. Immediately, Sigrun quickened his pace and ran. Why is that thing spilling out from Fiona's room? He flung open the door and called her, "Fiona, what's wrong?" He froze. In front of him stood Fiona facing a woman emitting black smoke. Sigrun! He was shocked. How could this happen? What is that thing? His eyes widened. This is the first time I've seen this thing, but why do I not feel strange about it? That thing looks like Fiona. That woman looked over at Sigrun Fiona, who was nestled beside him looking at her. Sigrun, Sigrun, when will she? She shouted into the darkness. Sigrun stared at her. Was that girl the darkness? He looked at her face, but inside was full of doubt. Why did she have a face like Fiona? She smiled lightly and coldly asked, "Do you cherish her that much?" The two cautiously looked at the dark woman. She covered her face and exploded with power. Her white hair flew wildly. So he treasured her that much. He cherished her. Why only cherish her? It's so unfair, Fiona reminded Sigrun. Sigrun stepped back. The voice of that woman still echoed. I must also have what she has. Everything. The black aura slowly dissipated. Fiona handled the person as she heard the last words before the dark woman disappeared. I will destroy everything you have. The wind blew strongly as Sigrun held Fiona in his arms. A scream pierced through the black aura, bursting in the room. After a while, everything returned to normal. Sigrun realized she had disappeared. The next morning at the Halo mansion, the table was covered with blank sheets of paper. What had happened? Was Fiona's soul truly corrupted? Fiona sat in a chair, leaning on the table, looking thoughtful. No, originally Fiona had already been corrupted. That was the end of the story. She sank into her own thoughts when thinking about the real Fiona. Fiona. Every time she thought of her, she felt both pity and fear because she knew Fiona's life. So she also knew how much Fiona hated her. Destroying it was also destroying herself, right? Probably so. Fiona worried, wondering if she wanted to reclaim this body. What would she do if she met her again? There was a knock on the table. It was Aben. He cared and asked if Fiona had any problems lately. She shook her head. Aben said there was nothing wrong. His anger flared as he clenched his teeth. Could it be that Sigrun made her sad? What happened? That guy said he would take care of you. Fiona panicked and explained it wasn't like that. If anything happens, I'll catch Sigrun first. Aben looked at her and said if she had any problems, just tell him. Fiona brushed her forehead with a feather pen. Humbly, she said she hadn't done much but kept trying to shoulder everything herself. What does Dad say when you do something? Praise or scold? Aben put his hand on her head. Fiona looked up at him as he stroked her hair. She pursed her lips and then said, Dad, can I keep staying here? Aben's eyes widened. He gently stroked her head and said, Of course, you're my daughter. Sunlight shone into the room as their conversation continued. Why did you adopt me? Is it because I've worked for years and have ability? If you only valued my talent, you'd treat me like a subordinate, not your real daughter, right? Aben shyly touched his neck and said, This is a bit embarrassing, but of course I care about you. Fiona was surprised. Really? Aben crossed his arms and looked at her. Why do you react like that? Fiona's hands were clenched tightly on her lap under the table. So, do you really care about me like your daughter? Aben replied. If I didn't see you as my daughter, I'd treat you like a loyal servant. Fiona asked further, Do you think anyone can replace me? Aben looked down at her. Why do you ask such hard questions? Fiona swallowed nervously and expressed her wish. Dad, can I hug you once? Aben didn't hesitate and hugged her tightly. Why so clingy today? He added, Anyway, from the first time I met you, I liked you a lot. Fiona felt very comforted in Aben's strong arms. She felt lucky to have someone to lean on during difficult times, and she would absolutely not give up on becoming Fiona Halong. Then Aben looked at her and asked, So, if anything happens, just tell Dad. Is it about that kid Sigrun? Did he cause trouble? Fiona hurriedly explained. You said no, but why do you keep targeting Sigrun? At the royal palace on the surface, footsteps were heard. It was Sigrun and his guard. He said, Khan, lately Princess Arya has been screaming and demanding you return. He looked at him. Sigrun doesn't look happy at all. Thanks to you, I'm so troubled. I probably have to fire you soon because little sister Arya keeps begging you to come back. Khan, when will you return? Hearing you say that made me gasp in shock, so I really am being kicked out? She's just pretending to cry. I had to endure harsh treatment just to stand on my own 2 feet, yet Sigrun understands him too well. So, that's your intention, huh? Truly speechless. The two of you talking together would be better if you went to see Princess Arya. I swear, Your Highness, the princess is really a good person, but I didn't mean that. Well, fine then. In the palace, one knee was down on the red carpet. Sigrun knelt in a dignified posture. Your Majesty, the Emperor has summoned you, no need for formalities. Yes, sir. You're here already, huh, Sigrun? Enoch is also here beside you, clenching his teeth while staring at Sigrun. The Emperor looked at his two children. The reason I summoned everyone is because I have something to entrust to you, Cax. Sigrun asked, Your Majesty, this matter is very important, right? He smiled with no good intentions. Sooner or later I will grant you a territory. But Enoch felt dissatisfied. How could father give someone like him ownership? The territory, huh? The Emperor had already prepared the reason. Sigrun had tamed the dragon twice and contributed greatly to the Empire. Only Sigrun stood silently beside him regarding this decision. Because he knew what the Emperor was thinking. The Emperor had long viewed the close relationship between himself and the Halong family as a thorn in his side, squinting his eyes with a smile. So Sigrun, isn't granting you a territory the right thing to do? Sigrun realized the Emperor intended to completely separate him from Aben-Ra. Scene change. Fiona stood obediently listening to the question. Fiona, do you want to own any area? She was very surprised. Why? Why are you asking that all of a sudden? Sigrun crossed his arms and sighed. The Emperor will grant me a territory. Refusing would be troublesome, so I plan to take land in whichever area you want. But Fiona was flustered. You can't decide such things by yourself. Your opinion matters to me, he said, gently playing with her hair, his gaze soft on her. But to me, your opinion is the most important. His sweet words deeply touched Fiona's heart. She looked at him, Sigrun, but immediately he pulled his emotions back. If you don't like any, I'll just throw darts at the map and pick randomly. This made Fiona hesitate. Wait, no. Let me see the map. You can't do that. Wait for me. Fiona bit into a biscuit, focusing on the map. Look, she pointed to a castle on the map. Cax once told me about the land in the south. It's a very interesting place. Sigrun nodded. Then I'll take the south. There were bunny-shaped biscuits on the plate. I heard the west also has a lot of interesting culture. I want to try going there someday. Then take the west instead, Fiona said, speechless, looking at Sigrun. Don't you have any ambition at all? Sigrun snapped back. No, I have plenty. His hand wrapped around Fiona's waist, pulling her into his arms. Anything else you want to suggest? Fiona had nothing to say to her man who was unbearable. But if she was granted land, her eyes lit up. Since things have come this far, if it can help him, that's good. If the land is too important, it will be obstructed. She pointed to a spot. So, here? Sigrun looked where she pointed. There's nothing here. But Fiona meant exactly that. Right. There's nothing here now. Acne territory isn't a place for leisure, and it's very hard to farm here. Because the land here is very barren, this place is famous for being hard to collect taxes. The family managing this land went bankrupt. Usually, if someone requests such a place as territory, people would think they're crazy. Sigrun kissed Fiona's ear lightly. Then just take this place. She wondered, You don't ask why I chose it? Sigrun replied, If it's your choice, I don't need a reason. Fiona was helpless before a man full of love. Isn't he trusting me too much? No matter what, it will help you. Sigrun didn't care. Even if it doesn't help, it's okay. That's what you want. Fiona stuffed a cookie into his mouth to stop him from kissing her. So shy, stop it. She smiled, showing the delicious cookie. I baked this earlier with Cax. Immediately, Sigrun's expression changed. He bit the bunny in half. So while I didn't know, you two have become closer, huh? Fiona replied, I don't know either. Maybe we got closer than before. She asked him again, Are you close with Cax? Sigrun lifted Fiona to sit on his lap. I don't know, not very close. Why answer so coldly? His emotions sank completely. There was no other way but for us to be suddenly separated when we were kids. And we only recently reconnected. Until then, I didn't even know if Cax was alive or dead. Between Cax and me, it's just cooperation for a common goal. Fiona immediately guessed that common goal was probably avenging the queen for Mother. Suddenly he spoke, saying he was different from Cax. Fiona was curious, different how? She couldn't clearly see Sigrun's expression. He was still angry, thinking about Mother's death or something he couldn't forgive. He gently held Fiona's hand and said, But Fiona, whenever I think of you, I feel I must be very careful because I don't want to lose you. There are certain boundaries to respect. The two of them embraced, filled with love and forgiveness. You are the person I cherish the most. Now I have someone I want to cherish and protect. But as for Cax, Fiona also understood. Cax was always polite and courteous. But it's quite hard to know what's really going on with Cax. Honestly, I don't want Cax to go down a dark path. The two rested their heads against each other, saying, "This is not because I am a good person, but because of a guilty feeling like a habit, especially about the misfortunes surrounding Sigrun when vague imaginations become reality right before my eyes. I want to protect him from the scars created by that unfortunate past. And even now, night falls over the White House, dazzling with lights. A person wearing a black cloak stands in the yard. It's Cax." He rearranged his thoughts. Sigrun was wavering and hesitating about crossing the line. Fiona thought surely she had softened Sigrun's heart. "I don't hate the people in the mansion, but I must not soften." He pulled his hood over his head. "Once it starts, it must end. I have to leave this mansion." A voice sounded right behind him. "Are you going for a walk?" Fiona stood there. Cax's eyes widened when he saw her. He adjusted his hood. "I'm very curious how you knew that, young lady." Fiona stepped forward with a different attitude. Like Cax, who tended to bristle like Sigrun when she was young. So, guessing his actions wasn't too hard. Cax realized that. He knew Cax wouldn't give up his intention. Fiona casually said, "Killing a noble is a serious crime." Cax was startled when he saw Fiona had discovered his secret. She continued, "You could also be arrested for treason." Cax replied, "That's not related at all." Fiona looked at him. "Your self-destructive nature really surprises me." Cax was curious. "Why are you interfering in this? Because I'm the prince's cousin?" Fiona's gaze dropped. She couldn't bring herself to say that revenge was meaningless, because hating those who took away your happiness is natural. Nevertheless, "I can't let Cax just run straight to hell." Then she looked straight at him. "Maybe someone else is trying to. Avenge your mother's death." Fiona carefully spoke each word. "What if I'm that person? What would you think?" Silence in the dark enveloped them. A light breeze blew. Cax looked seriously at her. "So, you're on my side in this revenge? You're joking, right?" Fiona didn't look at him. "My sudden actions might surprise you, but I'm not joking." Cax didn't believe her. "Are you serious?" Fiona suggested. "Do you want to find out for yourself? If you do, you'll understand better." Cax coldly looked at her. What is she thinking to say that? Isn't she afraid I might hurt her later? Who is that person after all? What does she know? Fiona tucked her hair behind her ear and said, "If you want to get closer to the truth, come back with me." Sunlight shone down, indicating a new day at the palace. Khan worriedly watched Sigrun open the lid of a box. "Your Highness, what you took out of the box is that a sparkling stone in your palm." "It's a raw diamond, even a pink diamond," Sigrun admired. "Just one glance and you knew right away, huh?" Khan humbly said, "Yes, I was taught about this when I was young, but that stone must be very expensive, right?" Sigrun silently admired the pink diamond. He asked, "Was this discovered in the territory?" The territorial agent bowed and replied, "Yes. This time your Highness was granted this territory, so we began a field survey. Through that, we discovered the diamond." Sigrun remained silent, recalling when Fiona chose the territory for him. "So here, what then?" "Anyway, that territory will also help you, Sigrun." His expression softened. "You're really good. Thanks for letting me know. You've worked hard. Can I keep this raw stone?" "Of course, Your Highness. At the Halo Mansion, is Aben there?" Aben smiled warmly. "Oh, Your Highness. What brings you to the Halo Mansion?" He placed the box on the table. "This was discovered by my people in the Acne territory." Aben picked it up and looked at the pink raw diamond, nodding. "You're really lucky," Sigrun said, getting to the point. "The person who inspected it told me to choose the Acne territory. It was Fiona." This surprised Aben. "Oh, Fiona?" He pretended not to know. "I don't know what she's really thinking anymore." Sigrun was no different. "I don't know either, that's why I came here." Aben questioned back. "If you ask me, I wouldn't know." Fiona rarely shows her true feelings. Sigrun half-jokingly threatened, "You better sharpen your role as Fiona's guardian, Aben." He laughed dryly. "That's true. Why don't you find Fiona yourself and talk to her?" A knock interrupted their conversation. "Dad, may I come in?" Aben said, "I guess we don't need to look for her." He called out loudly, "Come in." Fiona entered. "Oh, Sigrun is here too, Dad," she explained. "He said they found a diamond in the Acne territory." Fiona clapped her hands and smiled happily. "That's great." Seeing her reaction, the two men shared the same stereotypical thought. Aben sighed. This time, he still couldn't catch her true expression. Fiona turned to ask him, "So, Sigrun, do you plan to go to the Acne 1x0 territory?" Sigrun hugged her shoulder, leaned in, and kissed her forehead. "No, no need. It's the territory you chose, so it will definitely be a good one, Fiona said. Is that so? But I'm a bit curious about the diamond. Sigrun looked thoughtful. Fiona sometimes felt like she could foresee his future. Earlier, she clearly reacted as if discovering a diamond in the territory was natural. Her attitude made him feel an indescribable unease. He recalled when he first met Fiona. She said, "I'm the type of person who one day." Sigrun looked at Fiona. "I will definitely have many things in my hands, but I rarely know what you're really thinking." Fiona noticed the man staring at her silently. She touched Sigrun's cheek. "What's wrong, Sigrun?" He snapped out of it and rubbed his face on her hand. "I realize that. But if I keep doubting you like this, I can't do anything. No matter what happens, the one I love is still you, Fiona, and in the future, I will only love you." He kissed her hand gently and said, "Right now, we should prioritize the engagement ceremony over the territory. Is that so?" Sigrun recalled the conversation with the Emperor. The expected Cax prince and princess from other countries would also attend this event. Both would have the chance to meet good candidates. Sigrun's face flushed slightly. "Yes. I don't think we can delay the engagement any longer. So when can we announce the date?" A bang on the table interrupted their passionate conversation. Their hands clenched tightly, radiating tension. It seemed that for a while now, Aben glared at them furiously. "It seems you two forgot I'm here." Fiona tried to calm him down. "Dad, please relax and calm down." Sigrun looked at him in frustration. "Here we go again." Aben spoke coldly. "Your Highness," he forced a smile to hide his anger. "If you want to marry my daughter, first, Prince, you must follow the customs of the North." Sigrun was very confident, showing no fear. "Whatever you want is fine." This time, the one who was stunned was Fiona. "Wait, are you all joking?" Aben with a stern face, and Sigrun cautiously said simultaneously, "We're not joking." Fiona was speechless at these two grown men who always competed whenever they met. "You two only get along at times like this." According to the wedding customs in the North, because the place has always been harsh, they value strength above all else. There is a tradition of holding a small fight between the father, the mother, and the son-in-law. This is just a procedure to test the future son-in-law's strength. Therefore, the fight will not be too dangerous to decide the winner, but only conducted at a moderate level to excite the crowd in the stands around the arena, which was already packed. The noise is intense enough to show how heated this match is. Fiona looks around. Just from the entrance, it's already full of spectators. So many people came to watch. She feels shy and embarrassed, bored to witness the historic battle between the prince and the duke. So embarrassed she doesn't dare to look up. She thinks she wishes she could stop this from happening. Fiona recalls the conversation with Aben. She angrily questions her father. "Father, you really embarrassed me." Aben smiles brightly. "How can that be? Father just wants to clarify some things." Fiona knows his true intention. "I laugh without feeling ashamed. How strange." Abe seriously raises his hand to pat her head. "Those who still doubt your origin and insult. You don't know how happy Father is to have you by his side. Those who still talk nonsense about Father's daughter." Aben smiles. "Father wants to show them the day they dare to repeat those dirty words will be the day Father buries them." Fiona smiles shyly, thinking about those words. "Father said that, so I have nothing more to argue about." Sounds a bit ridiculous, but also cute and touching in a way. Surely Aben won't harm Sigrun, right? "Don't worry." Someone calls her young lady. Fiona turns to greet the two of them. "Young Lady Eunice. Young Lady Livia. You two are here too?" Eunice says, "Long time no see, young Lady Fiona." Eunice pats her chest reassuringly. "Don't worry. Everything will end well. Both of them are famous throughout the Empire for their swordsmanship." Fiona feels very good and thanks them for coming. Livia covers her mouth with a fan, smiling with squinted eyes. It's best to let them settle it themselves. Fiona understands that, although I know their actions are foolish and reckless, I can't do anything to stop them. Livia closes the fan. If the men who love the young lady are fighting each other for her, what she needs to do is applaud them. Fiona and Eunice share the same thought, looking at Livia. She smiles and says some unusual lines. Eunice asks young Lady Fiona, "If His Highness the Prince wins, will he be engaged to her?" Fiona explains, "No, in the North we don't care about winning or losing. More important than that is Father. I have to acknowledge him before the battle ends. What if their battle doesn't end? Then," Fiona clenches her hands tightly together, "then I will blow both of them away and claim myself the winner." The noise in the courtyard reaches its peak as two swords clash. Sigrun seriously asks how he intends to acknowledge her. Aben casually says, "I have no intention of acknowledging you." The two glare at each other. "If we prolong this battle, Fiona, we'll strike lightning down on this training ground." The two swords clash again as they continue fighting. That's right. Aben swings his sword from bottom to top. Sigrun steps back to dodge. Aben looks at him seriously. "I have no intention of prolonging this." Sigrun realizes his teacher has never changed. His attacks are still fierce and sharp as ever. "During my training at the Halo House, I practiced a technique to dodge. If he attacks me 3 times, I can dodge once. I can't dodge all 3 times, and have to try to follow his unpredictable movements." After finishing sword practice, Fiona would come wipe my sweat and comfort me that I worked hard. But now I am different. Sigrun adjusts his grip on the sword, blocking Aben's direct attack across his body. He smiles. "Looks like now you can dodge some of my attacks." His eyes widen when he hears Sigrun say, "Just as I thought. The Halo House is still the best." The two close in on each other. "What?" Sigrun continues. "No matter how long I stay in the capital, I can't feel attached to that place. Recently my half-sister came to visit me. The nobles in the capital, and even the emperor said, I don't belong there." Aben steps back to keep distance. "You mean Princess Arya found your weakness?" Sigrun immediately swings his sword. Aben is angry at the kid, looking at him. "However, I have no intention of giving up anything related to Fiona." The two fight while talking. "I don't know how you will grow without Fiona by your side." The sword tip presses down on the ground. "Speaking of which, Fiona told me that you would acknowledge me if I could make the ground on the arena. Catch your eye." On the stands, Fiona looked very worried and restless. "What is that?" "Then I will try it." Sigrun threw a handful of dirt at Aben's face. "Dirt?" Fiona covered her mouth in surprise. "Did he really do it?" "According to what you said, Sigrun?" Sigrun declared. "Now, sir, please allow me and Fiona to get engaged." Aben brushed off the grains of sand on his face. "Sorry, but the dirt you threw didn't even get in my eyes. If you want to get engaged to Fiona, wait another 100 years. Unfortunately, I can't wait 100 years. Eunice glanced at Fiona with concern and asked, "Miss Fiona, are you okay?" She blushed shyly. "I'm not okay at all." Storm clouds gathered in the sky. Eunice raised her hand to feel the air. "It's about to rain," Fiona reassured her. "Don't worry, it's just thunder and lightning." Suddenly, Fiona stood up, and at the same time, a lightning bolt struck the arena floor. "Stop!" The match was stopped. The two men looked at Fiona. She pointed at them and said loudly, "Your clothes are all covered in dirt." Fiona's whole body trembled as she heard the two men acting like, "Oh my God, I almost got killed by my own daughter. Sympathize with me. I almost got killed by my lover." She shouted loudly, "You two, take it easy. It's so embarrassing. Anyway, it's already done. Father has already acknowledged him, hasn't he?" Aben shook his head. "No, not yet." Fiona knew her father too well. "Father, you're lying. I saw everything." When Father went inside crying, Aben confidently said, "That's because I was heartbroken to see the daughter I raised with so much effort being treated so badly." Fiona put her hands on her hips and looked at him. "Father, don't talk nonsense." Then Sigrun called her, "Fiona!" He pulled her close and kissed her forehead. "Let's have the engagement ceremony at the Halo Mansion." Aben was irritated and twisted his body. Fiona worriedly asked, "Is that okay?" "As long as you choose it. That's the best place for me." Fiona smiled at Sigrun. Aben crossed his arms, standing beside them, radiating strong disapproval. "My daughter deserves an expensive ring." "Sigrun, you're not satisfied?" "Of course not. She deserves it. I will prepare a suitable ring for her." Fiona stopped him. "Is that really necessary? It's just an engagement ceremony. Does it have to be so extravagant? Later, when preparing the wedding, where will we get the money to pay?" "At that time, I will catch a dragon for you." Aben chimed in. "Exactly, that's worthy of my daughter." Fiona was speechless. Is everyone crazy? After all the ups and downs, we have finally started preparing for the official engagement ceremony, but at the same time, we also have to find a way to deal with the dark threats lurking around us. Fiona was having afternoon tea. She looked at the red-haired man holding a teacup and sipping. "Duke Aaron once came to see me and asked, 'Miss, are you human?' He asked like that. At that time, I didn't understand what he meant by asking me that, but she told Jerome about how Jerome was protecting the walls around the castle.